Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted, so very honored that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Luminary Podcast Addict, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Alysson Foti Bourque. She's returning to the show to celebrate the latest in her Alycat series. It's called Alycat and the Cattywampus Wednesday. Before we invite Allison into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Carry Me Home, the poignant and powerful middle grade novel that reminds us that homelessness is not hopelessness. Written by our friend Janet Fox. Janet was on the podcast not too long ago to talk to us about this really powerful book about two sisters who are struggling to keep their father's disappearance a secret so that they can stay together. It really is a powerful book that you can read or co-read with your teens and your tweens that will launch some really powerful and important conversations. Check it out today. Carry Me Home, the middle grade novel by Janet Fox. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is also brought to you by I Don't Want to Turn 3, the beautiful, fun picture book by Gramps Jeffrey. When does a toddler start to learn right from wrong? What happens in a family that influences a decision going through a young mind? I Don't Want to Turn 3 explores the interaction between family that is happening in just about every household in the world. This is a really fun book. You want to check it out today. I Don't Want to Turn 3. It's available on Amazon and is written by our friend Gramps Jeffrey. Join us right now from Sunset in the beautiful state of Louisiana. Our guest is returning to the show. We're really excited. She's here to celebrate the release of her new book. It's Alycat and the Cattywampus Wednesday. Please welcome back to the show, Alysson Bourque. Hey, Allison, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
I'm excited to have you back. Been some big news in the Alycat world.
Yes. Lots of exciting things to come, and we're just so excited for this new book to release on May 9th.
Yeah. So I've been down south. The Cattywampus is something that actually exists, right?
Yeah, so Cattywampus means backwards or kind of like wacky and wonky and, you know, a day that might be just totally upside down or anything that's just totally wacky. And so I thought it was the perfect word for this book because everybody says Wacky Wednesday or, you know, things like that. And I wanted something different and I wanted kids to learn a new word. And so how fun is Cattywampus? That word is so much fun.
Yeah, it is. And I really love being able to celebrate the diversity of culture that exists here in the United States.
Yes. And so, you know, we all go through different days that are cattywampus and we're all alike in that, even though we're so diverse. And so, no matter what kind of day you're having, everybody has to deal with it in their own way. And so I think it's a great tool to help anybody reading. And of course, all the characters in the stories are all diverse and they all have their own personality and every reader will be able to relate to at least one of these characters in the story.
Yeah. So remind us about Alycat. This is a really great character.
Okay, so Alycat is a cat who has a really big imagination. She is a cat that can often get into little predicaments. She has to often problem solve. I wanted this cat to be like our children. You know, they might be faced with some kind of dilemma and have to use the help of friends, creativity, maybe imagination, patience, anything to persevere through any of those problems. And so she goes through different things in each of the story. Like the first one, she missed out on dessert day. And of course, just like a child, she gets upset. And so she has to create her own happiness. And this book, she has a day that is completely upside down, cattywampus. She doesn't know where she's going. She doesn't understand why she's going to history class and she's supposed to be in PE and she's supposed to have breakfast for breakfast, but she's got seafood gumbo served to her. So everything is crazy. And so she relies on her friends to help her cope and get through the day and just trust, because that's what we all had to do. I wrote the book during the pandemic and when we all felt a little bit cattywampus. And so those things that we held on to, like our friends and our families, those constants in our lives, those were the things that I wanted Alycat to be able to rely on.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned the pandemic. Thankfully, we seem to be coming out of it slowly and surely, 2 steps out, 1 step back. But that was an incredible time in all of our lives. But, you know, I look back and, you know, I'm almost 100. So those 2 years, it was a small part of my life. But for somebody who is 5 or 6 or 7 right now, that was a significant part of their life they spent blocked away with just their family and not being able to see friends. And then when they got back together, they couldn't see their friends' expression because it was covered up by a mask or something. And, you know, we were all trying to problem solve and to be creative and to get through that. But imagine a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old having to deal with that without having the experiences that adults had lived through.
Right. And so during the pandemic, I, like most people, felt that the world had turned upside down. We had no idea what the next day would bring. And so a lot of my author visits were canceled. And I just thought about those children and how I was feeling lost and cattywampus and how they might be feeling, which my heart went out to them because their world was turned upside down. So to cope with things, I usually write. And when I started writing, I didn't want to write a book about the pandemic. I wanted to write something that would help us cope with these changing, you know, scenarios. And so I just kind of channeled all of that wacky and wonky feelings we all felt and put it in a book. And so with every problem that occurred in the book, I thought about how I dealt with these things during the pandemic. I just held steady with my friends and my family. If I felt alone, I would call a friend. They were still there. If I felt a little bit nervous or scared, I turned to my family. And so those were the things that I felt were a good resource because we really didn't have much to go with. We didn't have much. You know, there were no vaccines. We were just getting started with the mask and we didn't know what to do or where to turn, but there was those constants in our life and teachers. That was a huge part of the stability for kids. So I wanted to make sure that the teachers were in the book too, because that was a good resource.
Yeah. Now, this new book is one in a series of books. What number is this book?
This is number 5.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm already writing number 6, which will be out next year. So it keeps going. And the funny thing about the books being, you know, number 1 or number 2, I mean, they're not in any order, but I was at an author visit and I always hide Easter eggs in the books. And one of the kids raised their hand and said, I see an Easter egg in the book. And I had the book spread out and I said, okay, well, what is it? And she said, well, the first book has 1 character on the front. The second book that was released has 2 and the third has 3. And so I didn't realize that had happened by accident. And so by the 4th book, I said, well, I have to put 4 now. and now there's 5 on Cattywampus Wednesday. So we just keep on adding.
It's going to be a pretty crowded cover when you get to titles 10, 11, and 12.
I know. And I'm going to run out of the days of the week, but we'll just have to move on to like the months of the year and seasons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We've talked about the earlier books on other episodes of the podcast. At that time, you were publishing independently, and that was exciting, and you were finding a lot of success. but Alycat and the Cattywampus Wednesday is being published traditionally. What's that transition been like for you?
It's great. So my goal was always to be traditionally published. I've actually been self-published, hybrid published, and now traditionally published. And every route is a good route. For me personally, I wanted to be traditionally published. And so I would always query like we do as authors, and finally was picked up by Arcadia Publishing, and the imprint Pelican Publishing. And so, it's really great. It's, opened new doors, and I've met so many new people. I love that about the industry, is that when you continue with it, you meet new people and you learn more and you grow and they grow. And, so it's such a great positive experience. And, it has a cute little, book flap now. It has the little book jacket on it now. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the kidlit community, and that it is a really beautiful, supportive community, and it's unlike any other community that I've been involved in. Authors are technically all competitors. You're all fighting for people to put their eyes on your book. But I don't feel any of that competitiveness when I'm talking to different authors. I feel a lot of cooperation, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of celebration for each other when books are successful.
Yes, absolutely. And I have found over the years that the more that I kind of open up my journey with other authors and help each other, that things just work out and they get better and better when you work together. I had a new segment called Kidlit Picks, and I would highlight other authors' books, not my own, but others that I've just loved on this new segment. I did it for free and I enjoyed it so much. And I met so many great people doing that. And now we have a PR firm that we help authors promote their books and get their books out there. And being a part of their journey makes us so excited and proud for them. When they win an award, if it's in the middle of the night, we find out, we're going to email them, and we're as excited for them. It's just such a wonderful world, especially if you're in it to help each other and be there for each other.
Yeah. I want to talk about your career in a moment, but before we move on, you mentioned that you and our friend Lori Alinsky have started Forward Publicity. A lot of authors are really surprised to find out that once their book is published, whether it's traditionally published or self-published or hybrid, that you become the CEO of your book, and that there are so many things that you haven't thought of. A lot of authors are like, oh, I have to get this edited. That's going to be tough. But once it's edited, I have to get an illustrator. But now the book is published and you think your job is over, when really it's just beginning. What's one hint that you can share with authors in terms of how best to get the message out there? Obviously, hiring you and Lori in Forward Publicity is a wonderful thing. But if they're not ready to take that jump yet, what's something that can get them moving on the road?
So my best advice is to have an author start promoting your book 3 months before it releases, because once it releases, that's when, things start that downhill slope, not in sales, but just in exposure. Usually you want to build that excitement leading up to the release. And so, watching what other authors do, using relevant hashtags, being really creative with social media, having a book launch party, setting up interviews and podcasts, and all of these things that are going to help all together make the best of your book release and build that hype. And so I learned by watching authors that I truly admired. And they weren't even children's book authors. Like Jennifer Niven, she's a YA author. I watched what she did. She had this connection with her fans, and it was genuine. And they just adore her books, but they adore her too. So that would be another piece of advice is let your fans and your readers get to know you as a person and as a writer so that they will be with you for the long haul. Because that's what drew me to her books is I thought she was so great with her readers and her fans, and she connected with them. She responded to them, you know, she provided things for them, you know.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm hearing you say is that the time to start marketing your book and the time to start thinking about publicity is probably when you're beginning to write your book. It's all part of creating a business plan.
It's a business. Now your book is your book, baby. We look at our books as our own children, but it is what it is. It's a product, and you are now a business owner. You likely have an LLC. You're going to need a website. You have to file sales tax if you're, you know, having your own sales. You've got to treat it like a business so that people take you seriously. And so, you know, sometimes we get those reviews ahead of time that might be negative. That comes with the territory. And a lot of people get really bent out of shape, but that comes with the territory. That comes with every business. And so if you treat it like a business and you prepare before the launch of your business, then you can count on that success sustaining.
Now, you mentioned, you know, LLC, so there's definitely some legal things. You've had a really fascinating career. As I recall, you were an attorney, and you're a mom, and you're an author, and you have a publicity company. And I think there are a couple of other things that you've done in there. Yeah,
so I started my career as a teacher. I got a degree in elementary education. I taught first grade. I loved it. And I do feel like all of these things have guided me onto a path of what to do next. And it's all part of the plan. And so I taught school for a year, and I always wanted to go off to law school. And so I practiced law as Assistant Attorney General for the state of Louisiana for about 7 to 8 years. And I had 2 young kids at the time, and I felt like I needed to be there for them. I wanted to take about a year off and just be at home with them. And I did that. And so while doing that, we would read stories to them every night, and they wanted more books for their bookshelf. And I just simply told them, I will write you a story, because I wrote trial briefs. I used to write poetry. I might as well, you know, and I have, you know, an imagination. And so they thought it was a great idea. They believed in me, so I believed in myself. And I just sat down, and that's when the Alycat series was born. And so from there, I started writing books. I got picked up by my old publisher, and never went back to practicing law because this was so much more rewarding and fun. And, you know, I still have my law degree, and I use it from time to time. And who knows, one day I may go back to practicing law. But right now I'm enjoying this industry and the people that I meet. And during the pandemic, Lori and I had a podcast. It was kind of like a little Facebook interview session where we would talk to authors about their book journey. And this would provide readers and schools just a different type of, you know, video or something. They could still be in touch with their authors that they loved. And so while doing that, we had some authors that asked us about marketing. And so that grew from one author that we actually took on and helped them with a marketing plan to now over 200 authors. And we haven't stopped yet. And it's been such a great experience. And, you know, we've had cookbooks and YA novels and children's books. And Lori always gets me laughing every time we have a consult, because she will always mention our novel. It was an erotica novel written by an 86-year-old sweet woman. And every time she knows I'm going to crack up laughing every time she says it. And, you know, we got to listen to the sweet lady sent us her playlist that she had when she wrote. So it was just such a treat. It was so fun. And, yeah, we're just still rocking and rolling with helping people with their book journeys.
That is wonderful. The Alycat series is really fun. Are you thinking about other series?
I would love to write a graphic novel where like middle grade can read it, and it's almost like a cartoon. I used to like draw cartoons. I can't really draw that well, but I'm sure I can get some help. And I would love to do that. I have started writing a novel, but I don't have a lot of time, so I just get to it when like things are quiet. And so who knows, maybe I'll be 86 years old and writing and getting this novel out, like our client.
That sounds like fun. Well, the one thing that all of your jobs, all of the places that you've, found work as a professional, they all involve storytelling. Whether it's telling the story of your authors, whether it's in a courtroom trying to convince a judge or a jury of the story of a set of facts, being a teacher is obviously a storyteller, parent. You're a master storyteller.
That's a good title. My dad used to always call me a storyteller, and maybe that's because we would go. Let's say we were fishing on the dock, and I would come in and be like, we saw a fish and it was, 10 feet long. And he's like, oh, you're a storyteller. So it just makes people happy. I just want to make people happy.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have made folks happy, and you make us happy every time you join us. Where can people go? First off, where can people go to find out more about Forward Publicity?
They can head to our website. It's forwardpublicity.com, and forward is FOREWORD, publicity.com.
Yeah. And if people are interested in finding out more about Alycat and your entire series, where can they go to find out about that?
They can find me at my website, allcatseries.com, and on social media at the Alycat series.
Yeah. And, it's been such a fun time watching the Alycat series grow and watching Forward Publicity grow. And we are so delighted that you're a friend of the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so glad we got to talk again.
Yeah. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Alycat and the Cattywampus Wednesday, Alysson Bourque. Hey, Allison, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Glenn Morning. He'll be here to celebrate his Crunchy Life series. It's a really fascinating interview. Glenn is a veteran teacher, and he is looking to inspire kids to make the most of their lives. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, we would love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram. Our Pinterest page is named Reading With Your Kids. And if you are on Twitter, please reach out to us at Jedley Magic. Of course, we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our Certified Great Read Wall of Fame. You can sign up for our free newsletter. And you can also use the contact button at the top of the page to send us a message to let us know what we're doing right, let us know what we could be doing better, and to let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast. Check it out today, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks today who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Alysson Bourque. Please be sure to check out Alycat and the Cattywampus Wednesday. So much fun to say that. What a fun book to read with your kids. Also want to thank our sponsors, Carry Me Home by Janet Fox. Great reminder that homelessness does not mean hopelessness. And also, please be sure to check out I Do Not Want to Turn 3 by Gramps Jeffrey. My team deserves a big thank you. Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.